This next guy has obviously been a huge inspiration to us all. A tastemaker, a trendsetter, whatever term you want to use. This guy's really been at the forefront of skateboarding for some time. A man who cuts shoes in half and looks as good in the 1010s as Tiago. And as an aging skater, this guy is basically my lodestar. His Hollywood high 16 attempts make the hair on my back stand up. I mean, the man can hard flip back nose grind a regulation-sized ledge. That's right, I'm talking about the boss of the New Balance shoe department, Mr. Jeff Mikut, and his buddy, Andrew Reynolds. All right, sorry I had to do that to you, Andrew. But Jeff is a huge inspiration to us all. He has the most fucked up ledge combos I've ever seen at Cherry Park. Yeah, the way that this is going to work is they're going to do a conversation, and Andrew is going to sit on the sidelines. I asked Andrew to come up because it would really have screwed up my joke format if you weren't here. So he's going to sit on the sidelines, and then he's going to come up about halfway through, and then he's happy to answer any questions you have about his incredible new shoe that's coming out that I skated and is hella dope.
Oh, nice. Hello, everyone. My name's Jeff Mikut. I've been with New Balance for about 9 years. I've been a footwear designer for 19 years and a skateboarder for 26 years. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Nick Pappas. I'm the senior product manager for New Balance Numeric. What that basically means is kind of every footwear project, every season of footwear starts kind of somewhere in my brain. I write the briefs for new shoes along with the whole crew. Kind of we all have input. We're a small team. There's 8 or 9 of us that kind of make it all happen. I've been here this will be my 10th year, and it's really cool to see our shoes on so many feet. Like even to this day, I've been doing this a long time, and seeing people wear it just still blows my mind. So thank you guys for that. We also have brought out with us, obviously, Andrew's here, but as Ryan mentioned, Sebastian Palmer is our GM over there unloading the table. He's the reason we exist and haven't been, pushed to the wayside. He fights for all the stuff, and, I think the message here is that we all really care. Like, we're not here to sell you this shoe. We want to give you guys a view behind the curtain that people don't get. So that's kind of our purpose and goal here. Jason Rothmeyer is also here. He heads up our sales department. He's always in a Lakers or Dodgers hat, so he's easy to find. Chad Tim's there in the back. He's one of our team managers. You guys know Chad. Right next to him in the NBA hat is Leif. He's our designer. He sits in Boston, so he's our connection to like the mothership out in Boston. Yeah, Leif. And then we have a good assortment of the team here: Patrick and Cookie and Jordan and everybody over there. So yeah, that's it. That's kind of our spiel. Get going, and we're gonna run you through Andrew's introduction into the brand, how it kind of came about, how we led to this shoe, and it's a passion project for us. We ask, I think, my whole deal with this shoe is like, remember back in the day when the only way you found out about a new product was walking into the shop for the first time, and you're like, oh, there's this shoe, or what is this? Like, that's the feeling we were trying to give with Andrew's shoe. So we just kindly ask that, after we're done, we have the whole table set up, show the process, but kind of refrain from filming this, and kind of we want people to be surprised and excited when the shoe finally hits. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks, Nick. And did we introduce Andrew? I feel like we talked, yeah. Andrew Reynolds over on the corner of the table here. Yeah, awesome. You guys have obviously seen this cover if you're following skateboarding in any sense. But this is the first time this shoe has been viewed to the public. We kind of kept it out of catalogs. As Nick was saying, we really wanted to create some a little bit of a secrecy to this. It's kind of a lost art in skate footwear and the introduction to the internet. So a lot of people probably tried to zoom in and get a better look at this thing, but it is an odd angle at the end of the day. And today we're going to kind of give you guys a better look at what this shoe, the 933, looks like. So starting out, you know, Andrew Reynolds, he's been a pro skater for over 30 years, and he's probably jumped down more stairs than an average human walks down in their lifetime. I think it's an important thing to remember, but there's something in, you know, beyond skateboarding that I think Andrew brings to the table is 30 years plus of experience of jumping down stairs and experiencing shoes and footwear and the complexities of different styles of footwear over the years. So him bringing this wealth of knowledge to us allowed us to kind of reconsider what we're doing and bring depth to a new kind of form of product here. So I woke up one morning, and I got a DM from Andrew Reynolds, and this was a weird moment for me. I'm laying in bed at 6:30. My daughters are begging for food, and I see this message. I didn't open it right away. I did my normal morning routine. We started our work day, and I opened it up around lunchtime, and I was just so stoked to see this question about wanting to talk about New Balance. That's not his real phone number, by the way, if you guys are writing that down.
Psych!
Yeah. You could try, though, and see what happens. But yeah, you know, he normally shows up with a bag of fruit. You guys have probably seen this photo, but this time he showed up with a trash bag. And this trash bag had a slew of our shoes cut up and, you know, shoes he skated over the past couple of years, if not decades ago. And this initial conversation was about why are we building shoes the way we are? What's the importance of certain foams over other foams and construction methods? So we started to dissect, you know, how the 1010 is built, how the 480 is built, how the 600 is built, you know, the 440 as well. Pretty much every shoe we make, we cut in half, we looked at it, we dissected what's working, what's not working, what are things that can benefit him as a skateboarder. This was, yeah, a long conversation with the whole team. You know, I think, again, having a team of around 8 to 9 people, it's very effective, and it allows us to all kind of put our inputs in from different eras of skateboarding.
Yeah, so kind of first meeting, Andrew walks in the door, and we start talking about, you know, what he thinks a shoe, and he's a list maker. He kind of runs everything through lists, and he brought this to us, you know, kind of a sketch of what he thought it could be, all the kind of things that he wanted or needed in a shoe at this point in his career, you know, and he's fully informed with, you know, heights and measurements and things from his history in footwear, and kind of brought this to us as like, here's my kind of wish list. You know, he was looking for a full-length midsole, you know, similar to what we put in our 1010 or the 808 or 480. Like I mentioned, he knew kind of where the midsole heights needed to be to, you know, accomplish what he's trying to accomplish. Wanted to keep it modern. He wanted some exposed foam to keep it tech and lightweight. He wanted it to be, and this is the most important thing to me, he wanted it as comfortable as a sneaker, but perform like a skate shoe. And that's in my brain this entire 10 years here is like, that's the goal. Like how New Balance's storied legacy of comfortable dad shoes that old men walk around in because they're comfortable as shit. Like, how do we give that to skateboarders but still be able to perform? So, you know, kind of understanding what his needs were, kind of aligned with what we were looking for. You know, my goal here was to build a 990 series. If you don't know what the 990 series is, it's kind of the story. If you think about New Balance, like that's the shoe that should pop into your mind. Most of them are made in the U.S. At this point, or have always been. But how do you take that comfort and that like general feeling of a shoe and turn it into a skate shoe? The rule of thirds, you know, we wanted to break it up. It's, you know, 3-3-3. You know, and New Balance tends to design most of their classic shoes, you know, with like a toe section, a midfoot section, and a heel section, and keeping it kind of divided equally, and there's enough design elements in the three to, you know, create a shoe. It's Andrew, so the materials have to be the best. The best leathers, the best suedes, the best, you know, midsole compounds. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. That's kind of the idea. We wanted to be timeless, something that really undeniably was New Balance, but also upon visual, you immediately associate it with Andrew.
Yeah, so Andrew started sketching on the shoe, and I think what's cool about looking at these initial ideas was he wasn't looking at just the design of the shoe, but he was looking at how his foot interacted with the shoe. If you look at like that drawing on the right, he's analyzing how his foot fits in the 480 and the 440. So we were like, you know what? We have a huge team in Boston that can help us analyze this. I love the meter drawn at the top there of the 440 V2 versus the 808 and where the 933 should sit. Again, it just kind of started to set up some parameters for us to think about. And then this here was us kind of setting forth some aesthetic design, like what shoes should we be digging into from the brand that makes sense for this model, what inspires Andrew, and what feels right for the category. A lot of what we lean into, Nick was talking about the 990 series, is that 993 on the bottom left? Yeah, bottom left, which is a big inspiration for this project. And you can, 993, kind of similar number to where we landed here. But we looked at vintage court models, we looked at vintage tennis, and a lot of the running shoes. I think Andrew put forth that he wanted a shoe that was inspired by things pre-93, which I kind of loved. We looked at a lot of different sole units. With skate shoes, a lot of times we use herringbone patterns or more traditional things that you see tried and true year over year. We really wanted to focus on the aesthetic of these running styles and some contemporary models from the brand and apply some influence to that into the model here. So we took all that, and then we went out to Boston to kind of explore some research and learn a little bit from the bigger brand. This was 7:30 a.m. The first day. I go down outside of the hotel, and Andrew is sitting on the stoop with a micrometer, and he is measuring midsoles and taking notes on what we're going to do today and why this 808 midsole is different than the 480 or the 440. And it was a great way to start the day. So we got over to New Balance.
Yeah, so, I think this really speaks to, New Balance and their support of what we do in the brand. We're a small part of a bigger brand, but anytime there's, any person of note or one of our athletes, they really roll out the red carpet. Even if it's a Wednesday office tour, Andrew walks in and he's got his image and welcome on the giant TVs in the front of the office, and then they have these kind of faux lockers in the office, and you can see that we've got one built for him, sitting right next to Kawhi Leonard and Cameron Brink. Just really kind of, it doesn't matter what sport, if you're part of the family, you're part of the family, and I think that's for a brand like this, I would say that it does feel very family oriented. It's very accepting like that.
Yeah, so we drove up to Lawrence, Massachusetts, and they have a facility that's part office but part manufacturing. So we got to tour the factory, and this was really eye-opening for Andrew. I think it was maybe one of his first times to a factory of this size and scale. They're making 996s here, or
990 V6.
990 V6, I'm sorry. But what's interesting here is like when we think about footwear, we think about patterns, we think about yields, we think about materials, and when we build new concepts, we try to focus on sustainable efforts. So getting a visual of all this stuff up front, it helped us kind of set our design language with all these things in mind. So we did some sightseeing around the office. Saw this giant, it's at an 801, what is that shoe?
Yeah, I think so.
Gigantic 801. We went over to the sports research lab. It's not the typical use of these facilities. I'd imagine that's normally like a track runner on that, but he's doing his best Casper Brooker there. Casper Booker. But we got over there and we went to the lab where they have the ability to scan Andrew's foot. And what we were trying to accomplish here was not to necessarily see a semi-glossed finished rendering of Andrew's foot.
All you feet people, calm down. I know you're out there. Yeah, relax.
We're not trying to, analyze what a foot looks like after Wallenberg or Hollywood 16 or the Davis Gap. We're looking for data to help support Andrew's opinions and give him a better a data set to pull from to match some of what he's feeling in some of our models. So we learned his size was actually 11, not 11 and a half, which benefited him greatly in our shoes. But more importantly, we made a mold of his foot. We 3D printed a soft part of his foot, which you guys can see over here at this table on your guys' right after the presentation here. But the goal was to essentially see what his foot does when it interacts with certain models. And obviously we have Andrew to tell us how he feels about it, but I think it's interesting to dissect this from a data standpoint and see where our last shapes, our footwear, are not working the best with his foot.
Should we explain last?
We probably should.
Yeah, so a last is what the shoe is built around. It gives the shoe its shape. And very minor changes to the last can dictate a giant change to the aesthetic of the shoe. So, we work on work off of 4 or 5 lasts for our product, depending on, it's vulcanized or cup. Sometimes they cross over. But basically, that's the root level of building a shoe. What's that shape going to be like? And having this kind of information, he can say, or anybody can say, like, oh, it fits like this, it fits like that, and it's like, okay, well, you can look at this and see how it fights against the last that's been picked, or works with it, or where modifications need to be made.
Yeah, so we took all that information and we analyzed it with this guy, Tim Robinson, who's just a genius in his own right. He manages the sports research lab, but the beauty is he has a skate background, and I believe he was talking about videos that I've never heard of that you were in, which I thought was really just impressive. But we found that he had a little bit of not a bone spur, but a little bit of a flaring of his peroneus tendon. So as we developed our concept, we wanted to make sure that we paid attention to this in the design. This was our initial concept for beyond the aesthetic of the upper, but how are we going to build a platform to support what Andrew's aiming for, and keeping in mind all these things we learned through the research lab. This was our initial concept. It does pivot, which I'll run through towards the end of the conversation here. But essentially that green layer was going to be a closed cell PU, which is a hard durometer material that doesn't break down, and we're going to glue it inside this foam chamber and then place it in a rubber outsole, obviously for durability. So that was kind of the initial concept. All those would be glued together. And we started to figure out the upper. So that 993 that we talked about earlier generally influenced the language here. We pulled in some 440 influence as well as some stuff from the other 990 shoes. So all of this was starting to come together, and we had a rapid prototype made, and Andrew got to see it for the first time. Now this is a moment where you're sitting I'm sitting next to him. I'm wearing the striped shirt. You can kind of see the glasses peeking in out of frame there. And I'm just watching his face, and I can't tell what the hell he's thinking there. Is he happy? Is he sad? Is he mad? What's going on? But the beauty is, he was really, I think, blown away by how close this first sample was to what he was hoping for. We pulled everyone in the room, so everyone you see in this room is either design-focused, development-focused, or a technical engineer. And then we have Andrew kind of center of the table. And again, I think the narrative through this whole presentation is that Andrew was here from the very beginning, influencing every decision along the way. And I think, like Nick was saying about New Balance showing up, they were ready to listen to someone with decades of experience and not shy away with their own egos. It was very open and very productive. So you can see the table just gets messier and messier as we're trying to figure out what we're doing. Andrew had the shell pattern out. He was doing his own changes, explaining what his intentions were and what he was hoping for. When you guys see the final shoe, you can see how much we changed from this point. We discussed, is this the right N? Is this the right ollie pad? Are the shapes working? And the sole itself, we pivoted on some ideas here as well. So yeah, this was kind of our final glorified photo of our meeting that day. But in classic form, when you leave these trips, you got to get back to your real life. And we were there. We had a van picking us up every day. We had great meals, great conversations. And he goes back home and just get bossed around by your kid and have to do dishes. So kind of a harsh reality, if you will. But we got right back to it, and we started making some final decisions on where this model is going to go. These final changes. So we just isolated everything we wanted to change. We pivoted on branding. We pivoted on how the sole is going to be developed. And as we got to this next sample, you can see on the right here, we had this idea of like cutting the rubber to create these flexible kind of cutouts in the sole, exposing the midsole again, so you can kind of see that the midsole's full length. But we realized pretty quickly that all those radiuses and all the edging there is going to start to delam, especially if you pivot your foot a lot as a skater. So we filled all those in, and we adjusted some final lines, and we were really close to the final product at this stage.
I think just a point to call out here is, you know, all our decisions for all our footwear is made with you guys in mind. Like, you know, if I'm going to spend X amount of dollars, I expect this thing to last, and we try and think of all those little pieces and things that could potentially cause problems or concerns and try and fix them. Do we catch them all? No, because everybody's different and everybody's experience with a shoe is different. But this is just an example of like, hey, you know, if this wears out too fast and I'm a kid that just bought them, am I bummed? And so we fixed it.
Yeah, so this is the exciting part. We got to the wear testing. Again, you can kind of see his initial test was 50 tricks, right? 10 fakie flips, 10 frontside flips, 10 360 flips, 10 backside flips, 5 fakie heels, 5 back heels.
Yeah. I watched him write that on the table, and I was like, oh, yeah, it's your place. You can do whatever you want.
This was first try, 5 times in a row. I implore you, all of you.
Just putting the shoe on for the first time ever.
First time, right out of the box.
So
5 times in a row, mid-40s. Good luck, everyone. Try to do that. You know, we also had some of the other team guys there. You got Ryan Lay dead center there, shifting it up in the shoes. Tiago vibing over there, and then Patrick and Frankie's kind of off in the distance back there with Elian.
it's a great photo in the middle.
What's that?
That photo in the middle is
Yeah,
fantastic.
it's fantastic. Absolutely. Great work, Ryan.
I took that photo.
Prove it. Yeah, so you know, we started to analyze all these wear test results. It was nice to just sit there and like just nerd out on all like the wear patterns we're seeing, the things that we're happy with, the things we're aren't working. Overall, pretty positive. But we did find this main issue here where the toe cap was just peeling away a little too quickly. It was holding up, but you can see the middle layer on the right side just essentially was meant to be there as a bonding layer between the ollie pad and the toe cap. We just weren't finding it effective, so we had to go fix that, and we did just that. And it's kind of nice. So this is like a 3-week wear test on the right, and the toe, the ollie pad, you can see the stitches are all broke. The toe cap's completely adhered to the upper, and it's basically ready for proper use, and we're really confident in the structure of the shoe at this point. And yeah, I mean, this is the final concept. So I know I kind of gave you guys a lot of word jargon to get to here, but generally I just wanted to kind of frame like what we made in the final sense. So on the left here, we have a dual durometer rubber cup sole. So what that means is like when you think of wheels, you have like a 99A versus a 97 versus 95 all the way down to whatever you have, like an 87. So we just used a softer and a harder rubber, harder around that white area and a little softer on the base just to make sure you have good traction, good grip. But against the grip tape, we want to make sure the shoe lasts. You'll see the second layer coming out of that is what did I write? Nylon shank. So in performance footwear, shanks are used as a propulsion device. So almost think of a springboard. And we don't want that effect because you don't want to land and then feel like all that energy return to your calves, your knees, all the way up your body. So we use this more as a primo plate, and for Andrew's needs, he really wanted to control a flex point where the shoe flexed at. So kind of served dual purposes there. And then the midsole, we moved away from that gluing concept. The orange and that gray layer are fused together without glue, which was a really cool process that Nick's going to kind of explain right now.
So the midsole starts as this. This is Andrew's size 11, right? It's 2 pieces. There's a durometer in the orange and a durometer in the black. They fuse them together and basically kind of, simplified it. They inject heat and pressure and air, and you get this blown midsole, right? And we'll have this on the table for you guys to check out. So this is a product of this. This is exactly the size. And then once it's kind of made into this kind of blown mold, then it gets put in and kind of gets the shape and its form in a different mold. So we start out, with this, and normally this would be all glued together, and like Jeff said, you'd get points in under your foot where the beams of glue are, you know, dictating how the shoe flexes. So this one is going to flex how you flex your foot, essentially.
Yeah, rather than having this whole rim shape of bright green that you guys are seeing be glued together with the gray, this entire rim would essentially feel like an I-beam of glue. So one of our technical engineers was just like, you guys should fuse those. And we're like, that sounds great.
Yep.
So he helped us fix that, and it was a really beautiful solve. And it's something we haven't done in skate footwear, so I'm really excited to see it in a shoe that is coming from the Numeric range. And yeah, you know, we were talking with Andrew. Oh, sorry, I'm controlling that one. We were talking with Andrew about adding some personality into a shoe, some personal details beyond just, you know, some New Balance tech and New Balance design language. Like, what are some personal details? And he pointed at this tattoo on his arm. So this is a drawing from his daughter Stella, and it's embossed into the heel foam. So it kind of acts as like, we started to call this piece the cloud foam at one point, or the cloud piece, especially when we're coloring shoes up. It's a good reference point. But it's a really nice personal detail that I think kind of set the shoe to another level. And then Andrew's going to kind of walk us through these other details that we added into the tooling.
Hey, thank you guys so much. Thank all you guys for coming out here. Even hearing that again, I can't even believe that that New Balance did all this. You know what I mean? I can't believe that. All of this comes because I love to skate and I want to continue to skate. Hearing it, I'm like, dude, you're fucking nuts. Like, why would you think about all this stuff this much? But the funny thing is the session when we first got the samples with Tiago and everybody, I'm like, oh yeah, it's doing everything that I hoped for. You know what I mean? I was skating in some Volk shoes for. Like, I told myself the years before coming, I'll just skate whatever I get. Like, I can make it work. It really hurts. my feet really hurt. So I was like, okay, like, let me rethink this. You know, what are these Tiagos all about? And let me start trying to figure this out. I don't want to think about that when I go skate. I just want to put on the shoes and go skate. But going to Boston was, like, amazing with all, like, those guys were like, I was in a room with scientists, you know what I mean? Like, actual scientists. I could have went in a room and, like, made it snow on if I wanted to like test the shoes. It was insane. It was a really amazing experience. And I don't truly know if any other shoe brand would have done this. I don't think, and I know that I had a lot of drawings and all that up there, but it's not I'm like amateur with the drawings. It came from us, you know what I mean? We, like, every little part, all our relationship working would be, Jeff would tell me, that part's kind of weird. And I'd say, okay, you're right. We would trade. Remember we traded? yeah. There was a couple of things we traded. Like, I'll give you that, but let me get this, you know? These dates, when we went to Boston, they were, who was it? One of the guys was Jonathan, right? Yeah. He was explaining to us that, you know, the basketball guys and some of the tennis players, they'll hide little secret things in their shoe. Just, you know, some of theirs were really blatant, actually, like big old, like, sayings and stuff. But they're like, you could hide little things in there that are important to you. Then, you know, that's why I put a little drawing for my daughter Stella on the back. And then I'll just run through these dates. So 78, I was born. I was just talking to Rothmeyer about this. 78, I'm born. Started skating in 1987 when skateboarding was, well, the part that most of us probably do, street skateboarding was being born. You know, I watched all of it. There was no switch. There was no noses on the boards. There was nothing. It just was happening in front of me. And to be able to find it, or it find me, in a little small town in Lakeland, Florida, is just, I don't know, I'm just so grateful for it and to have found skateboarding. But yeah, you know, they're like, first time ever jumping on a handrail, Nada scones, all that was happening. I was watching it and learning it as it happened. And then, you know, in between there and there, like slowly skated a bunch of little contests, got sponsored, and ended up meeting Tony Hawk, and he kind of took me out and just, I don't know, took a shot, you know, and was like, yeah, he's good. He's like down to slam. Like let's just go, let's just hop in the van and go, you know. And then Birdhouse turned me pro in '95, which was a lot different than it is now. It was like a sales guy called and was like, yeah, we need more boards in the line, so you're gonna get a board. Okay, cool, you know. I started getting 1,000 a month and bought a video camera and a Honda Civic, and I just went. So soon after that, skated 1998 Skater of the Year, which was also. Thank you. Also a lot different. Jake told me that he saw a sequence of me in a Birdhouse ad doing a kickflip over a set of stairs in Paris, and he just said, I like that kid, give it to him. And that was it. I didn't do anything for Thrasher. I did nothing for Thrasher. I didn't do any, like, no video, maybe a video part, but it wasn't, nobody was going for it. You know what I mean? It was just, Jake liked you, and then you got it. So that was pretty cool. And then from that time on, you know, we got a little gang together and then started Baker in 2000. So all of that happens, and then I got sober in 2002, and that, thank you. I just want to say I really enjoyed the panel that came before us. Every person, like, I related to something every person said in there, and sobriety, I'm not supposed to talk about it, but, you know, that's a community. That's what they were talking about. That's the community. That's what kept me and made me stay, you know, is that group of people that I thought were nothing like me, but we're actually all the same in that place. So if anybody needs that, come talk to me. And then luckily this is the order, 2002 and 2005. So 2005, my daughter was born. It's a big moment in life. You know, you really kind of have to tap in and put your stuff to the side, you know, and kind of, okay, I got a job here. And it's not, for me, it wasn't a huge deal. It wasn't scary or anything. I'm just like, somebody threw a ball at me. I'm either going to let it hit me or I'm going to catch it. You know what I mean? It's like, I got to do it. So, yeah, I don't know if having a kid and then working hard for Stay Gold probably has something to do with each other, you know, survival. So 2010, Stay Gold came out. I feel like it was one of the better things I've worked on in my life and set a goal for and got it. And this is an important one, and it's good. It goes in this order from the big video part, and then I met the most amazing girl, and we've been together ever since. In 2011, and just want to say, I mean, everybody loves love, right? And it's like, you know, so it's a funny chain of events, though. You know, I did something that I felt was that I worked hard for and good, and then I got the girl. You know, so I don't know if that's actually how it works, but this is how it worked here. And then a whole bunch of skating and life, and then 2002 I signed with New Balance, and it's already what, 2005? Whoa.
2022.
I mean, yeah, 2025. Well,
It's been a minute.
no, but yeah, everything they said is true. You know, I went in there. How much am I supposed to talk?
I think they'll listen to you all day.
Oh, okay. No, everything they said was true. I went in there. You know, I left. The thing with Vans kind of ended, and I was truly just, what can I skate in that's gonna help me skate? I got a bunch of shoes, and I didn't really have any expectations about it. I just kind of was like, I'll skate Tiagos and just skate them, and then can I be on the flow program? That's kind of like where my head was at, you know. I'm just like, I'll just go, and if this works, then maybe we could build towards something. But if not, I did not expect all of this, you know. And going into it, I know he was talking about the list. I wrote down somewhere, if I want to continue this and continue to skate hard and continue to push myself for what I can do at 46 as a skater, I knew I can't do it alone. You know what I mean? I need people to help me, and you guys really did it. Like, it's been amazing, and this is not some, like you were saying, it's not some pitch or something. It's just like New Balance stepped up and took care of me better than anybody would have, and I'm stoked. So, oh, and one more thing. Ryan, the event is really sick. It's funny though, is the same place where Ali Boulala and Jim Greco used to run to come hide to do drugs and hide out with these guys over here, right? Is now the place that's the circle of, like, you know,
Enlightenment.
Yeah, enlightenment. It's so funny that it ended up here. You know what I mean? So it's a big change from early 2000s. All right.
I just to piggyback on that, when he came into the office, you know, he had shoes cut up from us and everybody else, you know, and his statement was like, your shoes are going to allow me to skate as long as I can. And that was just like that warm, fuzzy feeling where you're like, oh shit, we did this right. You know what I mean? Like, he's paid attention, he realizes it. That's, you know, that's the goal. Yeah, do this one. Yeah. So yeah, you know, naming the shoe was the next thing, right? What are we going to call this thing? I thought 8055 was hilarious because it says boss, right? That was my vote to start. But you know, we try to in our numbering convention, like the higher the number relates to the amount of tech we try to put in it. That's what we try to do, unless it's like a historical model that exists and we're just doing our version of it. So, you know, 333, that's the rule of thirds. 999 was already a shoe. 993, he asked, could we do 993.5? Like, just like, you know, like, I want to be as close to that as possible, but they you know, they keep those numbers, those 990 series pretty protected. So we came up with 933 and together, and that was it. So this is in the lasting board. When you finally see a pair, you pull the insert out, and this is underneath for everybody to discover.
Yeah, you know, at the end of these things, we always like to just see where we started, make sure we checked everything off. So it was nice. We checked everything that Andrew wanted. We checked everything that we were looking for. And, you know, at the end of the day, we're all really proud of this shoe. We think it's beautiful. Everyone can have their personal opinions every direction. That's fine. But, you know, as a brand, I think we're very, very proud of what we've made here. And on a personal level, I'm just really happy to give you something that you're proud of, too. So thank you for letting us make something for you here.
Yeah. I think along with Jeff and the rest of the team, it's just like more so than that the shoe for him, like the idea that how much we really give a shit, like we really care. We've all grown up skateboarding. It's our lives. And like this is the embodiment of that to me is this shoe. And yeah, thanks Andrew for all his insight and, you know, giving a shit. Yeah. So these are the launch colors. It's going to launch in April. You'll see the brown one. That's like the hero shot with the black and olive to follow. We've got Andrew in the Gray Day, our yearly New Balance Gray Day campaign in the gray, and then following up that will be like this triple like olive kind of faded color. Trying to keep it, you know, New Balance-y, but also, you know, have a colorway hopefully for everybody to kind of sink their teeth into. We generally don't launch with black shoes just because it's so obvious, but we felt like his consumer, the way he's, you know, his style, like this was the one where we had to do it.
And there's a black colorway coming down the road. Don't worry.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. If anybody's got questions, or if you can't get to them now, we're going to be walking around all week. We're shoe nerds and skate nerds, so feel free to pull us aside and ask us whatever you want.
Yeah. All right. Any questions? I'll run the mic. All right.
I think they're going to. Probably.
Thanks for the presentation. It's really interesting. I have a question. So then, did you say 900 series are typically USA made?
Yeah, generally the 900 series.
So are these USA made as well?
These are not. No,
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, just the historical
Yeah.
New Balance.
Okay. That was my question.
Yeah, generally the 990 series. I think 999 is made overseas as well. But
Any non-dudes out there? Oh, Haley.
Hi, thank you. That was really cool. I'm also a product manager, so I think about products and problems that exist and how we can solve them. I'm also a woman and a skater, and so something that I've thought about a lot, and actually specifically I've looked into taking sneaker making classes and looking into this, is a gap that I've found, which is skate shoes for women. And what I've found is that kind of as a skater who cares about my shoes and has to go and buy shoes pretty often, finding shoes that are inclusive in terms of size and in terms of style and things like that can be a little bit difficult for women. I think that what I've tried to research when it comes to that is, well, there's a lot of options for unisex shoes, right? But what I've learned is that oftentimes unisex shoes really, that just means that they're men's shoes. So the difference typically between a woman's shoe versus a men's shoe is the width. So if it's a unisex shoe, it's really just a men's shoe. So for a lot of women out there, we have no choice but to skate in men's shoes, essentially. And so this is something that I've just been really interested in, identifying kind of, is there an opportunity or is there a gap there? There's more and more women who are skating, and we know how important it is that the shoe fits us well when we're skating. And it's an opportunity I would love to explore, but it's definitely a challenge to start a shoe company. It's expensive, it's hard to do ethically, so it's never been a path I've gone down, but I'm just curious if it's something that you guys have seen an opportunity for, and if so, are you hiring?
No. It's a great question, and it's something that we discuss often, from footwear to adding, diversifying the team. You're correct in the widths. So basically the width situation is it's all on one plane. A B width is what would typically be a female lasted shoe. D would be the next, that's a standard men's width. We have switched all of our shoes to unisex, and we have lowered the bottom end or the left-hand side of the size scale to go down to, I think, 3 now moving forward. But yes, you are correct. You're getting a unisex shoe is generally based on, based on the D width. I think, there's other brands that have tried it, maybe not as successfully, but it's definitely something that we've talked about. It gets brought up regularly. We're the first skate shoe brand. Obviously New Balance has a heritage of being the brand that supplies widths for people with wide feet. So Andrew's shoes coming in a 2E as well as a D width, so that's a little bit wider. We'll have 5 models that kind of have that in the line that are available. But yeah, to answer your question, we probably haven't done enough to kind of figure that out, and there's definitely a gap there. I think that the hardest thing is based on minimums and how many shoes you have to buy to get something run. The reason brands go the unisex with D route is because it opens up the audience, and it's on the other side of that, it sucks because women have to adapt to that. But a B width, you might have a tough time as it grows. There's definitely something that we're looking for as an opportunity. Yeah, so the more that participate, the more reason there is to do it, I guess.
First off, thanks for coming out. And then, Andrew, thanks for sharing your story about sobriety. It's inspiring, and your level of skating kind of speaks volumes to that. Also, kind of related to her question, as I get older, my feet are craving something a little bit wider. Are you guys going to come out with like a wide version of this shoe?
Yeah, so it'll launch in 2E width, so it's a pretty roomy fit. What I would recommend is try it. We've kind of designed and built Andrew's shoe based on like the heritage of what New Balance does. So, it may not be the right skate shoe for you, but it might be the right lifestyle shoe for you.
Right.
And so we wanted to offer that width and that ability to like kind of customize your fit, so to speak. So it will be in the wider version at launch. We'll also have the 440 V2 in a wide width, which seems to be the one that people gravitate towards with the wider foot. No. And then our 574 Volk, our 272 Volk also have width. And then the 480, which is our kind of like crossover court model, heritage model, will start being offered in 2E this next season. So,
No,
yeah,
awesome.
we're definitely trying to do that.
Awesome. So I have an old school pair of Andrew Reynolds. Can I trade you for some New Balances?
What's up, guys? So my question is just based off of seeing collaborations. I saw the chocolate collaboration. I've been following you guys for a very long time with your shoe drops and how you guys drop general releases as well as pro models. Do you guys plan on doing collaborations with specific projects, like maybe even Slow Impact and things in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think collaborations for us is a new kind of venture. We've been doing them for a couple years now, but we went through 6 years where we couldn't find a partner that we really wanted to do with, fuck with us, and now we have to tell people no. So it's a weird juxtaposition of how those have crossed. But yeah, I think we're always looking for stuff. I think I don't know if it's super secret, but Mike Gelati's doing one for Andrew that we're gonna do like an art crossover there. And I think finding the right partner, we're gonna look at everything. I think we're most impactful when we collab with skate shops. It brings a boost to that shop. It brings a boost to that community. It's something to be proud of and hold on to when you're in that zone. So we're doing quite a few of those. That's kind of where we're at. And it's really somebody brings us a good idea or has a good concept, or like, hey, I've always wanted to tell this story about my zone. I think a Slow Impact one would be great.
Absolutely.
I think there's so many opportunities to do rad ones. I think it's just a matter of picking the ones that will be most impactful, but that we can really sink our teeth into and tell the right story. Sweet. Yeah.
This was amazing. It was really cool, and
Thank you.
it's awesome to see the intention that's been put into this. My question is about sustainability. Don't feel like you're going to get put on the spot.
No,
so,
we're pros at this.
So I have a company that's turning wheels into faux leather and recycled materials. And we've been spending 4 years doing this, go back and forth. We have some shoe designers on our team as well. And the question is, what is the hardest part of making a sustainable shoe for you all? Is it the biggest challenge, and where do you see it kind of going forward?
So for us, the brand itself has a ton of metrics that they're trying to hit for sustainability, and the first low-hanging fruit was acquiring more recycled polyester into meshes, laces, top cloths on your insoles. We're slowly adding biofoams, and the thing that we're really cognizant of the idea of that if we make a more sustainable shoe, it can't just be sustainable from the input. It has to be sustainable through the life of the shoe, because duration of product is really important to shoes not ending up in the landfill quicker, right? Also, consumers getting shoes and then, they just don't like the brand because the shoe fell apart. So everything that we change from a sustainable lens, needs to live up to or exceed past the original material. We have a couple of vegan suedes that we found that are just more of a synthetic-based build. They're limited in color range, but we've tested them to the point where we give people the shoe, they skate them, and they don't know the difference. And that's a huge win for us. So we're looking into recycled leathers, but again, integrity of material is just really important to us. So I don't have a slide that represents our acquisition of recycled polyester, but our metrics are like, we're never going to be
We're leading the company.
Yeah, we're not making consumer-facing, like screaming it to the consumer, but we're making a lot of behind-the-scenes moves that are just the right thing to do.
Yeah, but I think, also to add on that, I think the hardest part is skateboarding, right? You generally need suede or leather, and that's not, if we could use, synthetics and on more of the shoes, then you have a better opportunity to be more sustainable. But having the shoes last, like Jeff said, and then kind of extending the life cycle without compromising the materials, that's probably like the most difficult part.
Yeah, it's definitely top of mind of the company, and I'm glad that our like material palettes that we get are just more and more in that lane and more focused around that effort. So,
Yeah.
Hey, got a couple of detail questions. If you could speak to the intention, the turned up toe on the cup sole on the front, how that tied into the overall design of the shoe. And then also, there's like 3 recessed access panels. Well, there's 2 that are kind of recessed in the back. There's a piece closer to the toe box that's intentionally stitched out. I'm just curious if you looked at having that be like a recessed kind of accent panel as well.
I was going to let Andrew handle the runner toe question.
Yeah, I'll try to answer the best I can. Basically, I just like the way it looks, and I saw this. Like when I was designing, I was getting a lot of the 993s and a lot of the shoes sent to me just to wear around, and they all had that classic like runner New Balance look. And then right then also, I saw this line of Winning would do this switch tray like in Huntington, like in the middle of a school. He does a switch tray, and yeah, I saw that line. So like all that at once, I'm like, there's really no, and a lot of shoes I didn't see with it. So I thought, I don't know, could kind of make it stand out a little. But the Winning line and all the 991, 992, 993s, all that, they all had it. So I kind of wanted to stay in that world.
This was one of those trade-offs too. I remember we traded something for the runner toe. I forgot what it was, but I was kind of against it just at first, and then it was just part of the process, and I really loved the way it turned out.
The mud guard. Something about the mud guard.
What was your second question though? You were talking about a recessed stitch line.
Accent panels, like one near the heel, one in the center.
Oh yes.
There's a piece closer to the toe box that's like intentionally stitched out over the ollie pad. Like, did you guys study whether that would be like a recessed accent panel?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, if you look at like something like what he's got on right here in the front row, this is a lot of the runners that
Steve's God.
a lot of the runners that they design, they have like a matching window of mesh in the back as they do in the front. And we tried looking at that, leaving that a little window up in the front, that part you're talking about, but it just
Integrity.
yeah, I'm like it doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? I'm like it just doesn't make sense to have a window there. I think it would look cool. It would probably actually be a better design if it was. But I'm like, what can we do to make it fully skatable and kind of keep that same look? So we just like debossed. Yeah, we debossed it and then put a little pattern on it with the stitch line, just so it kind of matched the one below the plastic eyelet, just so there was like 2 things some kind of balance. I don't know. It makes sense in my mind. And then what was the other one?
That was it.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, that's why.
So earlier in the talk, you talked about wanting to have the like pre-93 design aspect of it. But then also with the Winning line, and I was thinking with the runner toe and kind of the big heel, it's a bit like a athletic, slimmed down version of the Lynx, a little bit. Yeah, and that's obviously, you know, it's kind of the 2000s techie shoe. But then with the, I guess I wanted to ask, like, how is the fusion of the like pre-93 like Airwalk design aspect and the kind of more techie side of it? Like, what was the...
That's sick. You know, you're young. You know about all the Airwalks and the links.
And that winning line is fucking awesome.
I know.
Switch front blunt, like Mach 10.
I mean, I think following skating so close for so many years, it's a hard thing to explain, but it shapes like what you think looks good in a shoe. You know, if a panel is too big and you grew up skating in the 90s and you associate it with a bad shoe from the 90s or from the early 2000s or and whatever, it's gonna stick with you, you know, and it's gonna. For me, in my mind, there's just a guideline. You know, there's like guidelines. Like I just see it clearly. Like that panel's too big. I don't know, but yeah. Comparing it to a Lynx to me is a compliment. I love that. And I love that shoe. I actually, in the middle of testing shoes, I had a pair and did like 3 or 4 kickflips on my back patio, and I was like, wow, like this, a runner toe really like lines up with where you kickflip so nice. It's like a perfect spot for kickflipping. You know what I mean? So yeah, all those shoes kind of like created what it is, you know? And for me, it was never going to be. I think they had to stop me from changing it. You know what I mean? I'd probably still be changing it now if they never would have said you're done. Because I was looking at it the other day, drawing lines on the shoes that are out in my house. I'm like, this could probably be, you know. So yeah, it's an ongoing. It's on. Yeah.
Thank goodness for deadlines.
All right, one final question from Sibo Walker.
All right, hey guys, thanks. This is super cool for fellow skate nerd and Hucker. But I wanted to ask you, Drew, because you said you wore kind of whatever for like a period of time. But did you put in different insoles or like mess with the shoes at all during that like period of time where you were like Davis Gap? You know, I can't imagine that was just like a stock insole to avoid heel bruise and stuff like that, up until the point where you were like, whoa, I really got to wear better shoes.
I'd say, well, the shoes were really, really thick in the early 2000s, and plus I was in my 20s, so it kind of, I don't know. I'd say a big chunk of my years skating and filming and jumping down stuff, I was wearing really thick shoes that didn't move, you know. So I have this. There's like two different types of skaters that like can wear some really thin Chuck Taylors and they want to use the muscles in their feet. This is all like really technical stuff, but like. I don't want to feel, when the shoe gets too thin and flexible, I don't like the feeling of using my foot bending within my shoe and having to use like all these muscles in my foot. So at some point when, you know, Leo Romero and all these guys started wearing really thin shoes and the shoes were just got like thinner and thinner and thinner, you know, up until, I mean, it was like the Janowski, you know, like around like they all kept getting thinner and thinner and thinner, which people love, and like I think they look great and they look really cool on people. But for me, it was a problem because I'm like, I want to stay up to date and wear shoes that are thin and look cool, but it hurts my feet. Like I can't. So I was always trying to find this balance of something that was stiff enough and had enough padding, but still kind of kept up with the times. So. As I got older, your question is when did I start to notice it? As I got older, I just kind of said, okay, I know there's a certain level of stiffness in my shoe that works for me, or a thickness between, because I was chopping them up and looking at them. And I swear, when I came to them, if I would skate shoes that was a millimeter thinner, no joke, a millimeter thinner from the front to the back, I'd feel it. It would hurt. It'd be like a smack on the ground. So with the Vans, I'd wear like old schools and cabs and like everybody loves a half cab, you know what I mean? But like I would like either double up insoles or I'd get a size too big and I put like really thick insoles. But it just gets weird because you're just like mushing around within this. But I made it work. But it wasn't something that I felt I could do for long, you know? Davis Gap, no, I probably had some maybe some FP insoles if they existed back then. No, I definitely had some insoles, but it was like, they were thick. Like those shoes were thick. They were like, I think like America Reynolds 2s. They're probably something similar to a 480, like that kind of construction. They had a whole like midsole in the whole shoe. So it definitely like I wasn't like, you know, a quarter of an inch from like my foot to the concrete. It was pretty thick. What else? So yeah, I had thick shoes while I was jumping all that stuff. Otherwise, like this is the last thing I'll say about the shoe thicknesses and stuff. I designed the Reynolds 3. I was like, oh, everybody's loving Volk now. I want to get Volks. I want some Volks. I got a pair when they came out, and people liked the America Reynolds 3. I went and skated stairs one time, an 11 stair, and just was going to do a line to a switch flip down it. And it hurt so bad, I was like, I'm never wearing those again. And I didn't wear them, ever. And it was
People love the Reynolds.
It was one of my best-selling shoes. I never wore it. So.
All right, I would like to just share one personal story here because I got the microphone. I can do whatever the hell I want. One, this is insanely fucking cool to have Andrew Reynolds and Tempe at our event talking about a shoe. For those of you who know me, you know the bits of my career, but 4 years ago, I was a slightly below average trail runner who skated sometimes before Chad texted me and rescued my career. But last summer, we were in Chicago with the whole New Balance team for that Thrasher trip, watching Thiago Lemos do the most fucked up 40-foot switchback tail on like a 22-inch high ledge, like nothing. And Andrew looks over at me and he goes, man, we're so lucky to be here. And I was like, you know what, Andrew Reynolds, we are so lucky to be here. So thank you once again for coming out.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Please check out the shoe over there. And lastly, please buy lunch before you leave. We do have mandatory minimums on that. Those people are super helpful. And if you are a queer woman and or a trans person, please head over to Mitchell. Kristen will be meeting you there at 2:30. Thanks.